Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Week 8 edition of Manz Maker, the premier DFS show in all of the land. And as always, but more so today, I am joined by a truly prestigious guest. You might know this gentleman's from his DFS work at Bro Football Focus. You might know this gentleman's from his podcast on Broto Grinders. Or you might know this man's as Burt Macklin's on Twitters. Tyler Buechers, I know I messed that up. Welcome to the program, my bro.
What is going on, man? Happy to be here. Week 8 looks like an awesome one. I'm excited to dive into it with you.
Excellent, dude. Excellent. Yeah, I already checked out your show on Broto Grinders this week. I know you got 2 articles up, FanDuel, cash game picks. You got DK, contrarian GPP picks up. So like you're already there in the mental space, correct?
Yep, I'm warmed up, ready to go.
That's right. Excellent, dude. So I first have to ask, because Julio is on bye, is this the week Julio blows up this week?
Yeah, I think it is. This is the week we finally see him reach the end zone. Multi-touchdown day incoming. Man, it's just been a shame because I've been riding that every single week, chasing it, and I won't stop until he finally hits it.
You got it, dude. It's you keep doubling down. I believe there's like an official term for it in gambling where you just keep doubling your blackjack bet and there's no way for you to lose. And that's what we're going to do with Julio till we get that Mount St. Julio's. What's up to the chat as you guys trickle in? Harbs, my dude, you're becoming one of these locked and loaded consistent viewers. Much love, Harbs. You guys feel free to drop questions in as we go throughout the show. I will be sure to pass those along to DFS Savant. Mr. Tyler's here. But we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to break down the slate, talk about some interesting spots, and then, of course, get into some of the quintessential classic segments on the show, sneaky shootouts, stone mins, and then, of course, I will challenge Tyler to the 69 challenge. Tyler, real quick question for you, because it's interesting. I used to think DraftKings that there was never going to be a slate that intrigued me in the way that just a traditional main slate intrigues me. But I feel like these showdown slates are starting to catch on a little bit. Have you been dabbling in these, or are you a main slate kind of guy?
No, I've definitely been dabbling. There's no slate that you cannot go. It's we have only 17 weeks of DFS football. I'm trying to play every slate that I can and cash anywhere and everywhere. These showdown slates, though, are very difficult. You need to think way outside the box. You're trying to beat hundreds of thousands of people here with only a limited, finite player pool. You really got to get a little weird with it in order to win one of these.
Yeah, dude, so last night, I was trying to go through that thought process in my head. I was like, who's the Marvin Hall on this slate? Yep. And it seemed like Tyler Ervin became the trendy Marvin Hall. And of course, it's Jordan Smith. Like the second you think you've plumbed the depths of possible people to put in the captain slot, there's one more guy that you had to dig even deeper for.
Yep. Yeah, I sent out a tongue-in-cheek kind of tweet with Tyler Ervin as your must-play captain. He's 6% owned, though, in that massive 250K one that DK runs. It's tough, though. Like, I like to YOLO these lineups where I really don't care if I lose the money because, honestly, they're almost like a lottery to me. So I'll go, like, really contrarian here, hoping it banks. I'll put it in a few single entries. But I'm never really expecting any of them to go off and profit. It's just a fun way to get a little cheddar in the game on these island games.
Well, that's where you and me are different because I'm treating these showdown slates like a different 401k fund. Like this is how I'm planning for my family's financial future is through these showdown slates. So, we'll approach these in different ways. If I don't win one of these, I will be living out on the street. Just kidding. I'm super rich. That would never happen. All right, let's talk about the main slate. And we always like to do this bird's eye view. I like to get Tyler's up in the hot air balloon, looking over DFS City, seeing what he sees, because I'm telling you, man, this slate looks fun. There are lots and lots of options. Last week, I felt it was tight. This week, I look around. I don't see the obvious wide receiver pump plays. I see plenty of running backs in good spots, plenty of quarterbacks. This feels like a freaky deaky week. Am I right?
Yeah, I agree. There's 6 games here with at least 49 points as a game total. Lots of options for us to choose from and lots of ways for our opponents to make mistakes. the way that I'll probably be approaching it here is going heavy on the running backs. These guys that we know get bankable touches, have multiple touchdown upside. These are the guys that I like to focus on my cash and tournament lineups.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about running back to start out. Last week felt gross. I found myself, like a lot of people, I was trying to get Zeke in there. I had some McCaffrey, just these guys that, we thought were going to get the guaranteed workloads. It ended up being the first week where paying down at running back. Chubb hit, Kerryon Johnson hit, Marlon Mack hit. In up to that point, you looked at the winning Millie Maker lineups, and they had 2, if not 3, bell cow stud, 20-plus carry, 20-plus touch backs. Is this an anomaly, or is this the new reality that we're going to start to see some of these lower-priced running backs hit?
Well, we're starting to see injuries pile up at the running back position. 0 RBs coming out, making its debut late in the season, as it normally does. It normally happens around now when we get into the bye weeks and injuries start taking effect. I think there will be, from time to time, cheaper backs to use. But I think, by and large, you should rely on the guys that get a ton of touches. I think the big question is to Gurley or not to Gurley this week. It's tough. I think in cash games, you kind of have to. Like, the guy's going to be at least 60% owned. When he drops like a 35-point burger, you're going to be way behind your opponents, and you'd much rather see that on your bench than your opponents. But tournaments here, I think I'm looking at trying to spread it around, going for some James Conner, some Joe Mixon, some Kareem Hunt, trying to mix those guys in heavily within my tournament lineups. Because honestly, I don't think you can fade these bell cow guys. If you do, you're hoping your wide receivers hit. And I think you have a much better chance at like the lower guys maybe getting that 5 for 110 in the score versus the wide receivers that you pay up for going for 9 for 202 scores. I don't see that as – there's a much different range of outcomes there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Every week I try, because I like to think in contrarian ways. I pull up the fan share ownership projections. I look at the top guys. I think, how can I fade these guys? Every week I want to fade Gurley so bad. And it's so hard because the way that you can fade Gurley, I think, is when Cooper Kupp is playing, because they like to use him in the red zone. But when Cooper Kupp is not playing, it's like sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it feels like it's like 80 to 90% chance it's going to Gurley somehow in the red zone. And if they're getting those trips, obviously the best offense in the NFL, and he's getting that kind of concentration of touches, how do you fade him?
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, the guy's just getting so many touches, and he's getting those really high equity ones inside the 10, inside the 5, and he's scoring on them. He's not like getting them and faltering. He's scoring on them. Behind that offensive line, this team is doing really well. I don't think it's going to slow down either. Like, he's on pace to beat LaDainian Tomlinson's touchdown record. I think it's in jeopardy this year.
So then let's just stick on this game because I think it's interesting. Let's work under the assumption that most people are going to just lock button Todd Gurley. You then have to get creative if you want more exposure to this game because Aaron Rodgers and Goff are a little pricey. Adams is pricey. There's, obviously Woods and Cooks are. Generally, you can get 3 studs in. You can maybe get 4 if you want to get super freaky with a punt play. How are we getting exposure to this game beyond Gurley without getting that red little sign on DraftKings that says you have exceeded your salary?
That's the challenge. Trying to find these value plays this week is a challenge in and of itself. There aren't many guys under 5K that you can draw a lot of interest in. But I think the best way to attack this Rams-Packers game, start with Gurley, bring it back with Rodgers. You can either then go to Devontae Adams if you're feeling it. The guy's been unreal in the red zone. Scoring a ton of touchdowns, plays against Marcus Peters this week, who's allowed the 2nd most receiving touchdowns in the year. Adams is number 2 in receiving touchdowns, number 1 in red zone targets. So there's just a lot of reasons for pairing him and Rodgers together, hoping that they combine for 2 scores or something here. But if you want to try to go a little cheaper, I could see a little bit of play for Jimmy Graham. We've seen tight ends have success against the Rams so far this year. Those are the ways that I'd go as far as stacking that game.
Yeah, that last guy you mentioned, Jimmy Graham, that's who's been really piquing my interest because there are some chalky tight ends emerging. Everyone's stoked on Vance McDonald. Everyone's stoked on Uzomah. People are rightfully stoked on Kelsey. But you're getting Graham right now at 4 or 5%, and it's a really creative, cheaper way to get exposure to this game. He just kind of flies under the radar a little bit. So, yeah, I love the Jimmy Graham call there. How are you approaching Woods versus Cooks? They're both priced very similarly, both scoring a lot of points, although they get their points in different ways. Do you think this game sets up better for one more than the other?
Yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with either one, because where Woods makes his money will be the underneath receptions, and Cooks on any play could go the distance. This Packers secondary isn't one that we should be worried about. I think they've allowed the 4th most receiving touchdowns so far in the season to opposing wideouts. So it's definitely one that we can target. The way that I'll be playing it is I'll probably have a little bit more Cooks than Woods, because I think Cooks will be lower owned. People like the safety in Woods. They went to him heavily last week. I think they'll do it again. But Cooks, we have currently in our ownership projection models on PFF, we have Cooks 7% lower than Woods. And so I'd rather take that leverage any day of the week, thinking they both have similar upside.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with that. I got to bring up a dude who I can't quit him. I know a lot of people on DFS and season long and dynasty Twitters, all the Twitters, Aaron Jones. And the reason I'm holding out hope, he's been great. I know your bro, Scott Barrett's over there, has been dropping some danky nugs about how much Aaron Jones is outplaying Jamal Williams. And obviously what we have here isn't an Aaron Jones problem. We have a Mike McCarthy problem. But I've seen some things about them coming out of the bye, about them, if we want to take a stroll down Narrative Street, about them reevaluating their backfield. McCarthy saying everything was on the table. We reevaluated everything. If things were ever going to change, wouldn't it seem like this would be the week that it would change coming out of the bye? And then you top that out with his price in this matchup. Is this another way to get sneaky, high upside exposure in this game?
See, I think it's almost a trap, because if they were to do it, I think the week would have done it would have been right after Aaron Rodgers' knee injury. And they didn't. They just kept rotating backs. I'm not taking coach speak from McCarthy. I'm not buying into any of it. I'd rather see it first. I think he's another guy where we see 60% of the touches and 60% of the snaps, and it just frustrates us like you are right now.
I'm so frustrated, dude. And look, Tyler is so much more of a reasonable Manz than I am. But, dude, I'm going to have a little Aaron Jones. I just want to be there. He's like my Julio, dude. I just want a little bit the week before it happens. It's tough, though. But I'm telling you, at 4,100, well, you know how I was talking about how you can do some freaky deaky things? If you do a punt tight end and Aaron Jones, you can get 4 studs in that game. 4 non-Aaron Jones studs. So it's tempting. It's tempting. I'm going to take some shots, but I hear you. It's hard to trust in these coaches right now. I think, do you think that'll end up being the most heavily stacked game, or do you think one of the other games could outpace it?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, just because I think both those teams are drawing such a large national audience right now. I think that's why we're going to see a ton of ownership. But I think the biggest game that I'll be stacking will probably be this Bucs-Bengals game. I think it's a sneaky one that, well, not really sneaky. I mean, you really want to attack this Buccaneers defense at every single level. I think every Bengals skill position player is in play this week, even their defense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was looking at the FanShare ownership projections. They have AJ Green as one of the top projected owned wide receivers. They have Tyler Boyd there, I think is 6th or 7th. And then Uzomah is in the top 3 for tight end. So again, my brain, I don't know why my brain rejects all the obvious plays, but my first thought goes, okay, is Joe Mixon the leverage here? Is Joe Mixon how we get away from this but still get exposure? And so, and if you like the D, the Joe Mixon, little Bengals D, maybe there's something there.
I agree completely. I actually wrote about this just in my DraftKings pick article earlier this week. The way to leverage everyone attacking this super heavy Bengals game is through the run game. I mean, Mixon has been coming off a bad game. I think he had 8 points in his last outing. There's going to be the recency bias in effect here. People aren't going to want to go to him. But, I mean, the guy has receiving upside. He's averaging almost 5 targets per game. this Bucks defense will probably be without Gerald McCoy. They'll be without Vinny Curry. Both those guys were DNPs all week. They just put Quan Alexander on IR. It was a game where we targeted with receiving backs in the past, this Buccaneers defense. But now with so many injuries in the front seven as well, you can attack it any way you want. And I think Mixon is a great way to get leverage on the field.
Yeah, and Harbs is saying in the chat the issue with Mixon is Hunt is right there, and I'll certainly give it to you.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
For cash games, for sure. I mean, Hunt at 7,100 is just so cheap, but he's also going to be, the top 3 owned back on the slate along with Gurley and Connor. So for tournaments, though, there's definitely merit to Mixon. What about on the other side of the ball? Because it seems like everyone's in on this game, and yet I don't hear people talking about the Bucs hardly at all. Like I haven't heard people. I've barely heard anyone saying Mike Evans, like try to get him in there. Where's the way to go on the Bucs side?
I'm very content just going naked Jameis. I mean, the guy spreads the ball around so well. He's been on fire since his return to action. He's put up 35.7 and 26.1 DK points since their bye. This team has no run game to lean on whatsoever, and he's been slinging it. He's put up 300-plus passing yards in each of his last 2 games, 84 combined rushing yards, 5 total touchdowns, since he has allowed at least 20 fantasy points to 6 of their first 7 opposing quarterbacks they've faced. I think this is a perfect scenario for Winston. You don't even need to try to bring it back with anybody. I'd be very content playing him by himself.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think if I did end up using one guy with him, I'd maybe look to OJ Howard. I like his price and how that ownership is shaking out, but I agree it's pretty hard to pay up for Evans and get the other guys you want, and then it's just tough to know if it's going to be a Godwin or Jackson week. So yeah, I definitely like that. It seemed like Peyton Barber was a little beat up earlier in the week, but now he's practicing in full. I guess that removes any of that deep desire in me to try to squeeze Ronald Jones into a lineup, right?
Yeah, I look elsewhere for the cheap RBs.
Okay. See, you just have to, I go full YOLO on these plays, and I have my guests that, come and kind of slap me around like a vaudeville doll. Like, yo, Manz, just don't do it. Don't play Ronald Jones. So that's what you're here for, my dude.
Here's what you do. You write down a list of all your plays for the week and just slowly whittle them down. Cross out the guys until you get to a tight core of guys you want, and then just rotate around there.
Dude, that sounds so genius and so obvious. I don't know why I haven't been thinking of that.
I got my notebook right next to me. I do it every week.
See, do you want to know my process, dude? My process is I pull up these ownership projections, and then I sort from lowest to the highest, and then I find my favorite plays from there. So,
I mean, it's not a bad strategy on large field tournaments.
I know, dude. Look, I don't have I respect all you cash game grinders out there. I seriously do. I don't have time for it. I'm taking shots at the millie. And it's just what I do. But no, it's nice, though, because you don't know how to build those lineups until you know what the cash core is going to be and then how to start to leverage those situations. Speaking of cash cores, I felt like last week there was a lot of viable 4K pump play wide receivers. Those plays also burned a lot of people, but I'm looking, Levitan's puts out his article for kind of top value targets, and there's not a lot of attractive options. I see people kind of talking themselves into Sammy Watkins, kind of talking themselves into the Raiders. Is there anyone that you think, both from a cash or tournament perspective, is viable in that salary saving range?
Yeah, I think Jordy's a guy that could be viable here. I mean, he's playing pretty well as of late. He already led the Raiders wide receivers in targets prior to Amari leaving. He's another receiver that moves all over the formation. He's run 30% of his routes from the left, slot, and right. So they're trying to get him involved. I think he has a really good matchup here against left cornerback Nate Hairston. He's the one I kind of want to single out here if I'm trying to pick on a cornerback of the Colts. He's currently our number 99 cornerback out of 112 in PFS grading, allowing a 128.3 NFL rating and coverage. Jordy has also scored in 3 of his last 4 games, including a pair of 8-target games during that span. So I'm thinking if we can get 8+ targets here in a game where the Raiders are projected to be scoring, I think Jordy could pay off as a viable cash game option this week.
I hear you. My thing, and let's hold hands, interlock our fingers, and take a stroll down Narrative Street again. I don't know how these Raiders get up to play this week. I mean, the demoralizing hits just keep coming and coming. I do not know how they get up to play for John Gruden this week. I don't know how they get up to play for John Gruden any game this season. I want the Colts defense in some of my lineups. I don't mind Jalen Richard. I think his role and where they're going to be playing in games is pretty locked and loaded. He's been averaging 6 targets a game even before the Lynch injury and the Cooper trade. But I'm just worried about this team folding. And I get the appeal of the Martavis and the Jordy dart throws, Jared Cook. But, man, this just seems like a team that could fold on the spot. And I'm down to play Luck and the Colts D and just get it both sides of the field the entire game. Is that crazy?
Not at all. I mean, I think this is definitely a game where we can target here. It's one of the games with over the 49-point total that I mentioned at the onset of this show. There's definitely plays on both sides of the ball. I think it could be a sneaky one to game stack, actually. And Jalen Richard is definitely one of the guys you could definitely put in your player pool.
Yeah, it's tough. If this was a different kind of, Raiders makeup where the team just doesn't seem like they've packed it in, I would definitely want to be game stacking this every which way. I think as of now, I don't know if I'm going to go beyond Richard, especially if Jordy and Martavis become kind of the trendy guys. Speaking of trendy guys and guys that got burned last week, Jermaine Kearse roasted all you cash game players last week. Actually, I had him in coming back in some dig stealing lineups as well. But what I'm hearing a little rumblings about going back to the Kearse well this week. What do you think of that?
So, I mean, there's definitely an argument to make for him. This is definitely a great matchup for him to do it. He's playing against the Bears this week, and only the Buccaneers have allowed more fantasy points over the middle than the Bears to opposing slot wide receivers to begin the year. The problem with Kearse last week is that he ran 29 of 40 routes from the slot. He saw 2 targets. Both those targets came while he was on the outside, and we just saw Sam Darnold relentlessly target the tight ends over the middle. So I'm not sure that's not going to happen again this week. But the matchup is what we're looking for on Kearse. I mean, process over results. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for a vulnerable area to attack. We've seen Darnold rely on the middle of the field as his go-to place to throw. And, I mean, everyone's going to be off him this week. He could be 3% owned, maybe less. They're going to be trailing. They're 7.5-point road dogs. I think you can go back to him this week.
I mean, who else is Darnold going to throw to? Is Rashard Matthews going to play this week?
I had no idea about Rashard. I know Robbie did not practice all this week. He's very, very questionable.
Yeah, and I obviously people are kind of excited about Chris Herndon, that rookie tight end there, but it does seem like going back to Kearse, just, who else is going to catch balls there? So definitely don't hate it. I mean, from a GP Pete perspective, I don't know, is he going to be able to smash value and help you win a tournament? But I certainly see merit in chasing those targets in cash games. We have Trevor Marshalls in the chat. I think Trevor asks about Gio Bernard every week. I don't know if this is from a redraft angle, if he's just your favorite player, but let's give Trevor Marshall his update. He wants to know what Gio Bernard's outlook is going forward. I assume he's maybe looking at like a showdown slate 4 weeks from now. So can you hook this guy up?
Yeah, 4 weeks from now he'll be in play. Until then, keep him on the bench in redraft leagues.
Sorry, a while. Sorry, Trevor. I know he's your boy, dude. He was a great 0 RB pick. We'll always have those couple of games without Mixon, but we're wait and see on him. But the second he's in play as a sprinkle, in 150 lineups, we will let you know, Trevor, for sure. Okay, let's go to some of the hit segments here. Favorite sneaky shootout game. I feel like we've talked about some of the obvious ones. Trevor, yes, you can hold your Gio Bernard share. We've talked about the obvious ones, the Packers and the Bucks and the Bengals. Where are you looking for the sneaky shootout?
So we kind of just mentioned it briefly here. I think it's this Colts-Raiders game.
Okay.
In order for this game to shoot out, though, we're going to kind of need to take a leap of faith here, assuming that the Raiders can keep up with the passing attack, that they haven't given up on Gruden. And maybe after such a wild week of so many off-the-field things happening for them, maybe they get weirdly inspired. I don't know. But there's the reason why I'm interested in attacking this game is the Colts rank first in neutral pass rate. That means like when they're within a score of plus or minus at a nice 69%. So that means they're often passing. They'll be going against the Raiders pass rush, which is not near non-existent. They have the 8th lowest coverage graded unit that we have here at PFF. So there's so many reasons for the Colts to just pass and find success doing it. The big concern here is if the Raiders just want to vacuum up time of possession, do some ground and pound with the nearly out to pasture Doug Martin, or if they want to actually try to fight in this game. I think we could see some deep shots to Martavis Bryant here. We could see some dinks and dunks to Jordy, to Jalen Richard. If it does tend to shoot out, if the Raiders try to keep pace with it, I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy equity in Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton. That stack was just like 1% owned in the Millie Maker last week. Nobody went to the Colts. I think they're a great option to go back to again this week.
Yeah, no, I do like that. And obviously, I personally like that, all the Colts stuff better. Do we think – so Jack Doyle, it sounds like, is going to suit up. Maybe that gets people off of Ebron. He also had the dud game. Could there be some sneaky value with Ebron?
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot less people on that for sure. Tight end's weird this week. I think there's like 2 or 3 guys that everyone's gravitating toward. And if you just go outside that little bubble, you'll have very little exposure.
Yeah, no, that, like I was saying, it seems like Uzma, Vance McDonald, Kelsey, those are going to be the big guys. And there's a lot. Yeah, like you said, once you go outside of that, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And no, you're not going to be too chalky. We got another question from Harbs. He wants to know what you think of, let's switch over to this 49ers Cardinals game. I haven't heard too many people talking about this. He wants to know about Mostert, Raheem Mostert, the French stallion, as I just called him for the very first time.
I am all about Mostert. If you played any preseason football, you definitely are too. We've been going wild cheering for him, all preseason fanatics, just because he's finally getting touches. This is something we've been wanting for a couple years now. He's coming off the heels of back-to-back games with double-digit touches, carrying the rock 19 times for 146 yards. This Cardinals defense is the one we want to attack. They're allowing the most rushing yards on the season, the most rushing touchdowns on the season. Breda was a DNP, I think, Wednesday and Thursday. I haven't checked Fridays yet. But there's just a lot of volume here, especially if the Cardinals try to pick up pace with Byron Leftwich playing calls now. Could see a lot of play volume for the 49ers as a direct result. It's the league's worst run defense. He's near minimum price. I love this Mostert play. Nice.
Yeah, although I will say, someone maybe, Harbs, you would probably know in the chat, I think it was right when we started, I swear to God, I thought I saw something that that Breida was practicing today. I might have misread that tweet wrong. Let me know. But this guy, man, he comes back from the dead like nobody's business.
He does. Yeah, you can't rule him out until Sunday at lock. Even then, you're not even sure.
Oh, we have a very special treat right now. Noted Halloween and IPA aficionado Denny Carter's in the chat. He wants to know, do you think David Johnson will score more than 6.9 half PPR points this week? I assume that question is for you, and it's just a very arbitrary number, so I'll let you field that one, Tyler.
Very arbitrary number. I think he has a very nice chance of surpassing that total and doing very well this week. I'm really excited to see what Leftwich has for him in store. Hopefully we get back to some vintage DJ.
I'm gonna merge 2 things we've been talking about here. You know, we've been talking about tight end being rough. We've been talking about this Arizona San Francisco game, and you know how I mentioned to you earlier that I built a filthy Rams Packers stack and it involved a punt tight end. Do you know who I'm getting at here?
Don't tell me Gerald Everett.
No. It's from the Arizona San Francisco game.
Ricky Seals? Who you got?
Ricky Seals, dude.
RSJ, man.
RSJ, 3K, big playability. I believe still leading the Cardinals in air yards.
Yep.
If you can do some filthy things, some unspeakable things with your lineup, if you mash Ricky Seals-Jones in, just saying.
I have no argument at all. I've been playing him whenever he's been minimum priced. So much flexibility when you punt a position like that. And, I mean, the guy could go off at any time. He's so athletic, was a former wide receiver. He's a big play waiting to happen anytime he's targeted.
That's right. Oh, Harbs did confirm for us that Breida returned to practice today. Does that change your thoughts on Mostert at all?
A little bit, man. I had a lot of dummy lineups now with Mostert, and I'm afraid to go back and fix them.
Yeah, I guess he's saying it's still a toss-up if he'll play, so that'll obviously just be one we have to monitor on Sunday morning. But, man, dude, like a cat, Matt Breida has 9 lives. All right. Okay, we got our sneaky shootout game. I actually just want to mention one other kind of I'm so torn on this. I want it to be my sneaky shootout game because I like the players. I like the ownership. Detroit Lions versus the Seattle Seahawks. Matt Stafford flying under the radar. You can get Golladay and Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones popping in the air yards by low model. Golladay just a total beast. But when you look at Stafford's dropbacks and pass attempts the past 3 weeks, it's just cratered. He went from averaging like 45 a game the first 3 weeks to averaging 30 a game. So that gives me incredible pause. They want to run. Patricia is a little bit of a dunce. Could I maybe eke out a winning GPP lineup with some of those Lions?
It's going to be tough because these are two of their slowest paced games of the week. I'm not too interested in either of these teams because of that. Like, we just don't have a very large pie to pick from here. With these guys running slow, they're just going to run a ton. They're going to be very inefficient. I think you can pick a few plays here, but I wouldn't go overboard trying to game stack it.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm going to have to get off. I might have a sprinkling of Marvin Jones, but what about Kerryon Johnson? If Theo doesn't go again, I feel like he's flying a little bit under the radar even after that big game last week, just because everyone wants to mash in all these top guys. Does it make sense to double down on Kerryon?
Yeah, I mean, 19 carries last week, 158 yards. Dude lit it up. It's hard to fade him, but again, I like backs that have touchdown equity, guys that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And really, they're not using Kerryon in that capacity, even with Theo missing last week. It's just unfortunate that coaching is getting in the way of such great plays.
It's true. Yeah, it's kind of similar, situation with Aaron Jones, like we were talking about, where he can definitely get there. They're capable of breaking off a long TD run and then he hits it. But yeah, you're definitely, swimming upstream with the usage and those stupid coaches. All right. Favorite lock button play, and let's just take Todd Gurley off the board because that's everybody's lock button. So after you mash in Todd Gurley, who's the second guy that you are pouring cement on, carving your initials, TB, and logging the F out?
The irony of this is his initials are TB.
Oh!
Tyler Boyd. I'll give you two locks, actually. Tyler Boyd is one of them. James Conner is my second guy. I'm all in on these two guys. I think you cannot build a tournament-winning lineup without them. Boyd, we'll start with Boyd. So I really want to attack the middle of this Buccaneers defense. They're terrible at it. We just posted a new wide receiver points allowed chart at PFF. That's tracking where fantasy points are allowed, like to wide receivers that line up on the left, to the slot, to the right. Tampa Bay is allowing the most fantasy points to opposing slot wide receivers by a massive margin of nearly 10 points. 38.1 fantasy points per game, 2 players that are lined up there. That's not saying 38 points to Tyler Boyd. That's saying 38 points to any player that lines up in the slot at that time. So, like, we could see AJ Green shift there. We could see CJ Uzomah take some routes in the slot, split out wide. But that's just the area we want to attack, especially now with Quan Alexander out. For Boyd, he lines up and runs most of his routes from the slot, 71%. Boyd and AJ Green are guys that I think are going to be big games this week. But due to pricing and roster construction, I think Boyd's the better play. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a lot of punts with AJ Green. And James Conner, man, I'm all about riding this Conner bus until the wheels fall off. In his first game with the Browns, 31 carries, 135 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5 for 57 receiving. He's a do-it-all back. Steelers are playing at home as 8-point favorites. Third highest implied point total of the game at 29.5 points. Wouldn't be surprised at all if two scores of that 29.5 came at Conner. Multi-touchdown ceiling. Yeah, I even like bringing it back, stacking it with the Steelers defense here. Conner and Boyd are my 2 locks to play.
I love it. And I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. I was thinking about James Conner, about how well he is performing in this offense. And in any way you look at it, the way he's performed this year is outperforming how Bell did in this same offense last year. So my question is, why is he still priced like this? I mean, is it like, I'm trying to figure, I assume the algorithm that DraftKings does is all mathematically based, whatever, but there has to be some superstar premium they're putting on Bell, because Bell in this spot would be 9,000 on DraftKings. And yet Connor's 7,500. Where is the disconnect between Connor's role being the exact same as Bell's last year, outperforming it, and yet he's $1,500 cheaper than if his name was Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. Like, I think they used to have algorithms to do it, and then somebody used to manually check it. Maybe they fired that person that manually checked things, because 7,500 is way too cheap for him. I think he's a great play here this week. Cash tournaments. The guy just gets so many touches. So many valuable touches. The Steelers playing at home. These are like the games we love to target with Big Ben and that entire offense. I'm all about it this week.
Yeah, I mean, in the Browns, lest we forget, they made Peyton Barber look like a thing. Peyton Barber, who couldn't get, everyone so desperately wanted Peyton Barber to be a thing. It wasn't until he played the Browns, and now you're telling me you're going to get James Conner and his concentration of touches and red zone uses with the defense having to worry about AB and Juju. I'm ready to put JC in that cement mixer next to my TBTB.
Yep. I mean, 22 touches a game. It's hard to fade that, man. Like, that's locked in volume that you get week after week. They're in a position for great game script as well. I'm all aboard it.
We are going to move on, but I'm going to throw one more running back name at you that I don't hear anyone talking about. This is where the man starts to get freaky deaky. He sees those ownership percentages, but this is actually a guy who's good and a guy who's actually going to get touches, but you can just get him at lower ownership. What do you think about pivoting to Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, so that's actually a really contrarian move. I don't think anyone's looking at it all. We have like these like big 5, big 6 backs that have kind of emerged in their own tier, and the other 5 are all in great positions to do well this week. Saquon's not really there, but he's still a guy that's in line for a ton of touches. The only really concern that I have is I think this Redskins run defense is a little underrated, but I mean, Saquon can nix that with 9 targets out of the backfield and put up a good fantasy day that way. I think he's a great way to gain leverage on the field.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, because everyone is scared off because the Redskins bottled up Zeke last week, who burned a lot of cash game players. But yeah, Saquon's role, just the type of player he is definitely different than Zeke, and he can definitely get his. I think, yeah, my concern too is just, like you said, the Redskins being pretty solid and that game maybe being slower paced, a little more of a defensive battle. But like we've seen, if he's getting at 9 targets, he's going to bust one of those long. Mm-hmm. And if even one of those 3 Gurley, Connor, and Hunt flop, you could really leverage the field with some Barkley ownership. So I'm definitely going to give that a long, hard look. All right, favorite stone min-ish punt play this week. This is so we can do the dirty things in our lineup. I already gave you mine. Who is your favorite stone min?
I couldn't get all the way to 3K, but
that's all right.
At 3.4, I thought he would still qualify. He's a guy the Dynasty community is eggplanting all over. Showed up pretty big in the preseason, but has been kind of quiet to start the year due to injuries. That's number 51 overall pick. Oh,
I was just going to get – no, I don't want to steal your thunder. Sorry.
Okay, Keep going. There's Anthony Miller.
Nice.
I think he's just such a great play here. Allen Robinson has been a DNP all week in practice so far. I think he's a real long shot to play, honestly. The Jets secondary absolutely riddled with injuries as well at the cornerback, at the safety positions. Miller's run 72% of his routes from the slot. Same juicy matchup here that made Adam Thielen a must-play last week, and that's against Jets slot corner Perry Nickerson. No, I'm not making that name up. This guy has been picked up. He's been picked on relentlessly so far this year. He's being targeted nearly 1 in every 4 snaps in coverage. 1 out of every 4 plays that he drops back, the ball's going his way because he's that bad. He's our number 109 cornerback out of 112. With A-Rob likely out, I think we could see a bit more targets funneled toward Miller. Near mid-priced, he's a guy I might be looking at in tournaments.
I like it, dude. I heard, I didn't know this, but Anthony Miller, I guess, led the Bears in air yards last week. Which definitely has my spidey senses flaring. I also like it because if you want to use Trubisky, I feel like most people will want to chase Cohen and Burton after last week. And I like also getting Gabriel, who I think people are a little burned by, but you can do a little Trubisky, Miller, Gabriel, and then you can basically do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. So I like that Anthony Miller call. It's funny you said that because that was Ian's kind of super sneaky play last week. Obviously didn't fully pan out, but you guys are definitely onto something. And like you said, his talent is obviously there, been a little injured. I guess the only, obviously in a spot start, I guess going forward, it's just hard with this offense and how much they spread it around. But maybe like you said, if Allen Robinson sits, maybe that concentrates things a little more.
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see on that. But if he does, I mean, the guy came off 7 targets last week. Like you said, led the team in air yards. I think he's a viable option.
For sure. Okay, Tyler, it is now time for the portion of the show where we both unzip our pants and we whip our giant ball sacks onto the desk. Sorry, PFF. That's what we're doing right now. Tyler, are you familiar with the 69 challenge?
I am familiar, but can you let our viewers that don't know give them a little rundown?
Yes. So the 69 challenge, a lot of you are going to say, hey, this sounds familiar. And that's because FanDuel's ripped off my idea for their entire NBA format this year. But the way this works is there is infamously 9 slots on DraftKings, and Tyler and I are going to play head-to-head, okay, except the wrinkle is I'm throwing out my 3 worst scores. So the best I can do are my 6 best scores versus Tyler's entire 9 guys, his entire lineup. And it's my 3 worst scores. People have tried to tell me how to play this game. I said, shut up. I know how to do this. Okay. I've won once this year against Davis Maddox. Boy, did I get him good. And just so you know, it was also a week where no one was on Saquon, and I pivoted to him in that lineup. So just telling you, be on the lookout, Tyler. So first of all, do you accept this challenge, with the stakes being, if I beat you, you have to go on some airwaves or tweet waves and crown me the greatest DFS player of our generation?
I accept. Let's bring it.
Excellent. Actually, do you have any, how many, people have tried different things. I feel like I get in people's head, some guys just stick with their high floor cash lineup. Some people are like, what's Manz going to do? So where's your headspace on this challenge right now?
So I'm going to take this approach how I do every single entry high stakes GPP game I do. I mean, it's high stakes. I mean, come on. I'm going to put out the best lineup I can, and it's going to dominate.
Okay. All right. It's a very diplomatic answer, but I like that. I can just picture you with your notebook, and you're going to just keep crossing out all the plays until you get to the perfect 9 for the 69 challenge. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for coming on the program. You guys got to follow him on Twitter at Tyler Buecher. I got his link in the show notes to also his work over at PFF. What's the name of the podcast you do on Roto Grinders? Because I just subscribe to that feed, so I get all the Roto Grinders pods. What's that pod name?
I don't know. It's PFF with Roto Grinders.
Okay. Look for it. It normally drops, I want to say, Wednesdays or Thursdays. It's a great pod with Tyler, Britt Devine, and then Scott Barrett's. And you guys run through some of your favorite plays at each position. One of my favorite listens on the week. Definitely check out Tyler. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, my dude.
Thank you, man. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Excellent. And thanks to the chat, Harbs, Trevor Marshall holding it down, dude. We'll leave a candle on for Gio Bernard's. I'm Pete Manzanelli. Oh, I did just so a little plug here. I played on Friday Night Pokers last week in Viva Las Vegas with Academy Award-winning nominated Jennifer Tilly's, some other characters. I posted a highlight video on my channel today, so you guys go to my videos if you want to watch Poker Manz. But thank you guys again for tuning in. We will be back next week with another great, prestigious guest. I'm Pete Manzanelli. Tyler's Tyler Buecher. Get paid, get laid.